start speaking quicker. Second better.
Stop.
That's it. And then afterwards, in order, I mean, we think it's not just what the presenter is saying, it's what thoughts it sets off in your head. And so to maximise discussion, we'll have 5 minutes just chatting quickly to the person next to you, and then we'll have 5 minutes of questions or general chat. Emma, is it okay? Okay, so could I call on Group A presenter, which is the EAP. Thank you very much. And I hope we're not making too nervous. Okay. I think just move back.
So this will be my first time to use a microphone. I hope I won't make mistakes. So I'm Sevgi from İzmir University and we're Group A. Our title was to EAP or not to EAP? That's the question. So I'd like to start my presentation by reminding of the scenario first. This is all in your book, but I can say that this FOCI University, the instructors, are confused about the terms of EAP and how to integrate it into prep schools or general English. So first we want to, first of all, distinguish or make a distinction between EAP and general English. And the faculty teachers, they want us to design a course which helps students to, practice their vocabulary and terminology skills. Okay, these are the points that we should consider. So we first talked about the lack of clarity about EAP first. So what do we mean by EAP and how can we integrate it into prep schools? And we're going to go on with distinguishing between English for academic purposes and general English. And then we're going to focus on terminology. How can we, integrate terminology into our curriculum? Okay, in our discussion we brainstormed about the terms of general English and EAP, and we had some, not fights, but small arguments about what to mean by EAP and general English. That's why we offered, a focus group for FOCI University instructors to make a distinction. It was hard to make a distinction because for most of the points we came up with the idea that there are some very common parts between these two terms, but we tried to make, a distinction, but it doesn't mean that, this is for general English and this is for EAP. I think we should go, previous one. Okay, so we talked about, first of all, in general English, we talked about that basic language skills and strategies are more focused on, while in EAP, more skills-oriented approach is considered. It doesn't mean that, in general English, skills, are disregarded, but when we think about, research skills, we can say that first in general English, the students know the basic rules of the language input first, and then go on with, research skills. And we thought that when we think about language input, general English is more intensive. And when we think about vocabulary, we talked about that, general vocabulary is mostly used in general English, but when we think about English for academic purposes, terminologies and, generalities based on academic word list, and also for faculty needs. And when we think about the topics and themes, we thought that in general English, generally it is more about, daily life or common and more familiar topics, while in EAP it's more about academic context and topics. And for, spoken and written outcomes, teachers generally tend to have a more flexible approach to written and spoken outcomes, while in EAP, conventions and format are more strictly followed. So in EAP, documentation style is also more focused on. So when we think about, research papers, journals, articles, essays, then the documentation style is of more use. So this was the part that, we think differently. So when we said, general English, like English for academic purposes, some of us said that general English for prep students and EAP for freshmen. But then some of us, disagree with this idea, and we thought that, for general in EAP, we cannot make a distinction, when we think about the assessment. So we said more frequent and standardized exams in general English when we think about the courses in a week, because it's more, intensive. And for EAP, we talked about classwork and continuous assessment, and it's more emphasized at higher levels. And we think that, rather than recognition, production is more important. But that's the same for the general English too. So while we were arguing this, we had some opinions and we have some suggestions for FOCI instructors, because we also couldn't make a distinction between them. And we came up with the idea of balancing of linguistic and academic skills. So we said that for lower levels, focus is more on linguistic skills, and for higher levels, academic skills must be taken into consideration. And having said that, we have to look at the curriculum as a whole, not separately for general English and EAP. And first of all, by interviewing with faculty, teachers, and with students, we have to prioritize and what do we need, or what do the students need for their courses. Okay, this is for our recommendation for FOCI. First of all, as we have discussed, even in our focus group, we offered a focus group meeting. So all the instructors will come together, and first of all, they have to clarify these terms. What is EAP? What is general English? And how can we mix it in our curriculum? So to do this, first of all, we have to make a needs analysis. So with the help of the other departments, we have to make a needs analysis. So when we think about these suggestions, on the first place, it's always needs analysis. We want them to define their missions and goals. They have to define their exit level descriptors. So they need to, know what do they expect from a, prep student, and what do they expect from a, freshman student. And is there, or there should be a continuity between them. So which means they have to decide on a very clear language policy for both prep and freshmen. And based on these analysis, interviews, suggestions, they have to design a new curriculum. Okay, so the second part was about terminology. As I said before, the lecturers, faculty teachers want the instructors to prepare students for the terminology of their chosen disciplines. So again, the biggest title is, the biggest suggestion is needs or corpus analysis. So we can do needs analysis, but also the instructors can do also corpus analysis. I think Sabancı University did that in their school. So what they are doing basically is they are scanning the books of the departments, and they come up with some vocabulary lists, and they interview with faculty members. And they try to design a course which includes also terminology of their departments. And based on these analysis, there can be, or there might be, compulsory or elective ESB courses, English for specific purposes, where the students will need the vocabulary they are going to encounter during their studies for further years. And we also came up with the idea of projects and presentations related to their department. And there was a very good suggestion about student bodies. So a student from prep school and a student from freshman year, they work together and they do a project related to their field. And both like hazırlık or prep students and faculty students, they are assessed. And they are doing it with the help of their friends and instructors and faculty teachers too. And the last one is content-based teaching based on faculty members' ideas. In fact, it is hard to, cater for all of the students, but of course it's ideal. So for some universities, they do it because, for example, in Sabancı, I think they don't choose their departments on the first and second year, so most of the students don't know their departments. But for most universities, the students come with their, existing departments, so it's very hard to put all the students in one group, like engineering or psychology or business administration. It is hard, but for that one we can offer, maybe once a week they can do separate courses for for specific purposes, English for specific purposes. Okay, and we have some overall suggestions for FOCI University. So the first one was about content-based teaching. So they have to prepare common themes and objectives, and they can do this by exposing the students into department-related topics. And when we think about text and tasks, again, like with the results of the needs analysis, first of all, we have to decide what kind of text will the students encounter during their studies. And when we think about length, text length, we have to think about various levels. And we also should prepare materials for various purposes too, like text annotation, reading selectively, which will help them for their research skills, essay writing, projects, or report writing. And book selection is very important too. So again, what we suggest is to form a book selection committee, like maybe small focus groups, where they can look at the books based on a criteria. So when they have chosen a book based on the curriculum, they can pilot the book in one class. And after they have applied it, they can write some evaluation reports, and based on these results, they can come up with a not perfect, but a very desirable and most appropriate book. And our last suggestion is there should be a curriculum development committee too, because curriculum means everything. Curriculum decides what kind of questions should be asked or what kind of books should be used. So this, I think, department or this group is very important, where they can work with both prep schools and freshman schools in order to make a continuity between, like a bridge between two levels. Thank you.
Thank you. So we now have 5 minutes. If you could just turn to the nearest person next to you in pairs, or 3 if you need to. 5 minutes just to talk about what thoughts and thoughts are you doing.
General English and EAP side, I think, okay, but where do we split EAP from ESP? If it's very thematic based, when does it become ESP and when does it, what can we differentiate between that?
Any comments?
That's what I think. For ESP, for English for academic purposes, we don't necessarily choose topics related to their fields, but that's more related to, research skills, plagiarism, etc. but English for specific purposes, I think that must be done with faculty teachers, because if it is medical terms, then that mustn't be our job. Or if it's for tourism, then they have to follow a certain, I don't know, a book or a list. But again, English for academic purposes, I think it includes everything related to academic culture.
We talked about this in our own group, in Group D, and we were talking about like when does EAP start, and like when do we need to start introducing those academic skills. And one idea that came up was in prep we can focus more on general English but within an academic context. So you're still using, for example, academic texts and stuff, but we're keeping it more general. In freshman, we'd have more of the academic skills, so like focus on the reading, the writing, the speaking skills. And for the more specialised ones, we thought like nearer to their graduation when they'd understand the value of it more. So an example that came up was if you have a law school in your school, then you might have like part of the course, your ESP course might be how to interview clients effectively, kind of thing. So they'd see the value of it more. That was the idea that came up in our group.
Any reactions or further comments? Okay. Okay, we're going to take us to 5 minutes. But maybe we ring it out. Well, maybe I can make. I mean, my comment is the thing that gets me is when people use general English as a synonym for prep and the EAP as a synonym for freshmen. I think maybe these terms are just not really that helpful, and maybe we should just concentrate on meeting our students' needs at the levels they're at. Okay, let's move on to Group B, which was the teaching sections.
Hello, I'm Shema from Tech University. Our group focuses on teachers' perceptions and perceptions of teachers. But first of all, I have to mention that Figen Hocam and I are the only freshman instructors, and the other members of the groups are all from prep school. And first we discussed the difference between teachers' perceptions and perceptions of teachers. The first one is, we thought that the first one is how teachers perceive each other, and the second one is how they are perceived by others. And we have 3 slides, only 3 slides, so we divide the topics into 3. In the first, I'm going to mention the perceptions both freshman instructors and prep instructors have. In the second one, I'm going to mention the problem, and lastly, we are going to offer some suggestions and solutions. And as for perceptions, in terms of rules and regulations, generally freshman instructors are told to be more flexible, however, prep teachers have more strict rules. And again, in terms of curriculum and assessment, yes, this is the case unfortunately. And in terms of curriculum and assessment, again, autonomy is thought to be something related to freshman instructors. However, prep teachers are controlled by their director and other units, much more control. And another point is about benefits. Again, at some universities, freshman instructors are paid more salaries, they have more half days and off days. Again, they have individual, at some universities, they have individual staff rooms. However, many prep instructors have to work in open office. And in terms of workload, generally, freshman instructors blame prep teachers for not being able to teach English effectively, and they find students' level of English really inadequate. However, they miss one point. Prep teachers only have 1 year to teach English, and during the summer semester, our students do not make an effort to improve their English, so their level of English decreases. And also, prep teachers have a tendency to underestimate what freshman instructors do. They thought they only teach reading and writing, okay, over and over repeatedly. However, when we think about their physical conditions, they have many classes, they have hundreds of students, and they have to grade many papers, they have to give feedback to hundreds of students. And in terms of course design, freshman instructors have to prepare their course design. However, prep instructors are given their curriculum. And we want to mention another perception, a wider universal perception. Unfortunately, instructors, not freshmen or prep, instructors in general are not regarded as academicians. The other academic staff, yes, have a negative perception. Instructors cannot vote, they do not have a right to vote, and in email lists they are categorized differently, etc. Yes, we have many problems, but generally we have one ultimate problem, which is not having enough effective communication. So, again, we have one ultimate suggestion, which is we need to achieve better communication. So first we have to learn how to emphasize. So rotation, mobilization, these are the keywords. When survey questions have reveals that generally there is one way to get from prep to freshman. However, it should be also vice versa. And peer observation is another way. Prep teachers and freshman teachers can observe each other's classes, and by this way they can learn their students' needs and profile and what's going on during the classes. Yes, we have to organize also regular meetings to explain what we are doing to each other, because we do not aware of what other teams are doing. So by briefing teachers' forums, we can achieve this. We can organize some more local FOCI, and we name this focal. Okay, we found it. And we mean by focal the meetings among the universities in the same cities. It can be easier. And some garbage can meetings, it can be another solution. Here, garbage can meetings, we can voice our complaints and problems without any purpose of finding solution, only to feel relaxed. Yes. And you know, especially at prep schools, yes, we organize focus meetings among students. We call them in order to voice their problems and ideas about curriculum and assessment. Freshman instructors can be also included in these meetings, so they can see students' profile for their next years. And yes, this is really a missing point. We should learn consulting other parties. Both prep instructors and freshman instructors face many problems. So whenever we face problems, we can consult other parties and ask for their suggestions and ideas. So we can learn to emphasize by this way. Yes, so we can decide together. Of course, we have time and space constraints, but we can do our best. Yes, and in social context, we try to get to know each other. We can organize some social organizations and events and kısır parties and etc. Thank you.
student-teacher collaboration between preps and freshman teachers, and observing each other is a good idea, I think, and also unity between the programs, as we have discussed in our group also, and examining each other's curriculum and exams can be another suggestion for me.
Thank you. Any more?
We like the garbage day. I have an inbuilt microphone.
Okay.
We like it.
We were talking with Sayed. Another issue that came to our mind was teachers' perceptions of each other, and freshman teachers perceiving prep. What about the freshman teacher perceiving himself or herself after passing on to freshmen? I mean, I've become an academic student. I'm not a prep teacher anymore. So we thought this would be another point that we could add.
I could have given the same example with the next one, student perception. I've just noticed freshmen. Students have the same mentality. I've already been open to them, transparent. I've come from preparatory program, and 1 or 2 students, this is out of 300 students, that, our lessons have become like prep lessons, prep-like lessons. It's a prep-like lesson. They have the same mentality.
Anybody else?
Something on behalf of my group. We discussed a lot actually, but we couldn't reflect them in our presentations. There are so many things. And one of them was, most of prep schools are called schools. We call ourselves schools, and it's very difficult to relate it to any faculty. And this is perceived by the students as a school as well. And from the first day, we start with the rules of classroom, etc., expectations, without knowing the students. We tell them that they are potential problem makers and we will have many rules, and then if they don't obey, they are going to be punished. So the student immediately, without even thinking about it, perceives us as school and high school, and they start acting, they bring their own habits to us. So the question is, are we making ourselves perceived as school, high school? This is self-criticism. I think we need to think about it more.
Any more comments or questions? Okay. Maybe we'll move on to Group C, which is Cultures, Communication, Collaboration. No. I think that's right. Cultures, Communication, Group C. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Pamela. I'm from İzmir Economic University. I've been asked to speak on behalf of my team of consultants who were invited in by FOCI at the university to try and support them with their issues regarding the gap. Okay, we specifically looked at cultures, communication, and collaboration. It's very difficult to say. And we started by looking, if Jonathan could so basically the first thing we decided to look at is the gap seems to be within that university. Secondly, we then decided to look at why is there a gap, and finally, how to bridge the gap. So in this session, we're going to go through it in that order. So if we start with the next slide, is it? That was a title and completely thrown. Okay. So where is the gap? Obviously, first of all, in communication. Communication is such a vital thing in any organisation. Okay, so where is the gap? First of all, communication, a vital thing in any organisation, and basically we felt that within this university setting, as like many other universities, there's insufficient systematic communication and cooperation. So from the top down, from the bottom up, there is no systematic form of communication. And as was talked about previously and will be talked about, there are different and maybe unclear student and teacher perceptions about the whole role of the School of Foreign Languages, prep school and freshman programme. Secondly, curriculum. The content of the curriculum, the learning outcomes, the targeted skills and the materials. We felt that the programmes and curriculums had been developed almost separately, and there didn't seem to be any previous cooperation between the two freshman programmes and the prep programme on these topics, so therefore they were standalone almost. Why is there a gap? We again, by looking and speaking to instructors and watching the current procedures at university, again, we felt there was no overall systematic approach. It was very piece by piece, piecemeal type of approach to the language teaching in the organisation. Different organisational cultures. In every university there's different structures, there's different organisations, there's no sort of ideal, if there's such a thing, structure that can be used as a base for universities to work to. Also, which I think is a major issue in most educational institutions, not only in Turkey but all over the world, or in any organisation, I think it's fair to say, resistance to change. We don't like change by nature, we're scared of it, and unless it's managed properly, it can really cause major issues within the organisation. So again, that was a major issue that we thought created the gap. So, having looked at what the current situation is, we talked about how we can bridge this gap. And we did this by looking at different areas. Our major idea or suggestion or recommendation to the university would be to have a language policy, a university-wide based language policy. And the first thing that we felt was important about this language policy was ownership by all stakeholders. Everybody has to feel part of this policy, they have to feel that it's theirs and they own it and therefore have a sense of responsibility to make sure that the policy is carried out. How do we get a language policy? It's a major step. How do we do it? An idea that somebody else talked about. Needs analysis. It's always the starting point. We have to know what the needs are before we can make the policy. And we felt that this needs analysis would need to include the faculty members and the students. Our duty is to provide an education for the students. They are our main area of concern, so therefore they should be involved in it. There should be a clearly defined university exit level. And what we mean by university exit level is not at the end of prep or the end of freshman. By the time the students leave this university, they should be leaving with English at that exit level. whether that involves an extended freshman programme or whatever, but they should have a defined exit level. Our main word that kept repeating itself throughout our discussions was continuum or continuous or no break. Okay? So we felt that there should be a curriculum that was coherent but was geared towards this continuum, so that the students, the faculty members, the teachers, the instructors could see this constant upward movement in their language achievement or attainment. We then looked at communication. We came up with some suggestions to try and improve communications in the hope that by improving communications, the gap that was there or perceived between freshmen and prep would narrow and hopefully close. Some suggestions we came up with was panels and discussions together. So when we mean together, it means prep school and freshman teachers coming together and attending these discussions and panels, sharing ideas, contributing together. General staff meetings, again coming together, discussing the challenges and working on solutions. Nothing is perfect, no programme is perfect, no policy is perfect, nobody is perfect. So in that sense, we have to... so we have to be honest. There's problems, there's challenges, let's find solutions for them. Social gatherings, somebody else mentioned that, always good fun. We felt these social gatherings should be very informal. It shouldn't be management organised, let's all go on a trip to Pub and Palais, the bus leaves at 9 o'clock. We felt it should be more kind of, we're going for a beer. Scheduling conferences and workshops. We also came up focal, fantastic. Ours is not quite so fantastic, but we liked it. We fell in love with this. FOCI. FOCI is a focus on freshman issues. But again, that sounds a bit only freshman. But the good thing that the organisers of this thing should say is that the freshman teachers love it and want one. So it can be extended to FOCI. Extended and continued orientation between programmes. We felt that orientation for students, induction for teachers, orientation for teachers was a vital part of getting the students and the teachers with the university. From the moment they walk into the door, they're on our side. A point somebody made was very good about this school idea, and we're treating them like kids. We want the orientation programme to be extended so that when you move into freshmen, it's almost this is what you've done in prep, this is what you're going to do, so that we extend the idea. We don't just give them an orientation on the day they arrive and give them a little folder or something. But not only for students, for teachers. Comments were made that new teachers arrive at the university and nobody knows who they are. The freshman teachers see somebody walking about and it's a new prep school teacher and they don't know who it is. So meeting, greeting, explaining programmes to new teachers is very important. Rotating teachers, we love the idea, we thought it was a good idea. However, we did recognise that logistically it's not that easy, considering that in most schools the population of the freshman teachers is much lower than in prep school. So it can't be a sort of ongoing process. It has to be done somehow, managed that as much as possible we rotate the teachers. Curriculum development, something else somebody mentioned, peer observations. Stressing the fact that we're not there to look at the teacher, we're not here to assess your teaching, we're here to look at the curriculum and see how freshmen and prep teachers do things. Again, a needs analysis, find out what the students need from the curriculum. Ask the students what they need or expect from their learning of English. members is involved in this. A joint curriculum committee, so curriculum CMDU or curriculum members and the freshman curriculum members meeting on a regular basis so that the programme is coherent. Exam papers or essays, assessment tasks. I don't know very much about the freshman assessment. Freshman teachers don't know how we assess our students. Why not give them the papers, sample papers? Let them see how the assessment works in both areas. And a very important thing, there's overlaps. We are teaching something in prep and maybe the same thing is covered in a different way, completely different way in the freshman. The students get confused, they don't know what they're doing or what's the right way to do things. So we have to pinpoint where these overlaps are and deal with them. Feedback, vital, again in any organisation. We thought an online platform where teachers can discuss or share ideas would be a good thing. Again, focus groups. Focus groups with teachers and with students, but on a very, again, informal basis. Not managed. Come say what you really want to say. Free to say. And of course, surveys to students about their language learning, but more importantly, give us the results. Don't run surveys and not give results. Give the results in a timely manner and let people really understand what the results mean for their decisions. This is FOCI, the elephant, okay? This is the elephant in the room, okay? When we were discussing it, there was a big elephant sitting there. We decided to make them focus on freshmen and prep issues, so FOCI. And it's something that was touched on before. The perception of freshman teachers, the perception of prep teachers. There is this, almost feeling that, freshmen, you're academic. You poor prep teachers, as we mentioned before. And we did think this was a big issue, and it's something that really needs to be addressed. Something that came up with a discussion I was having recently as well. Native speakers, Turkish teachers. Normally freshman teachers are native speakers. The majority, not always, but the majority. And there's this issue as well, the students perceive the freshman teachers as something different that Brenda touched on. We have to accept that's there. We don't need to whisper about it. We need to stand up and say, why is there that perception? We're all instructors, we're all basically doing the same job. Why are people getting different benefits, different rewards? If we want that gap to be closed, then we need to recognise that basically we're all doing a very difficult job well in most cases, and therefore there should be no distinction between freshmen and prep. We're all teachers and that's the elephant. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for
Okay, 5 minutes with your person next to you.
Yeah, when I did my final exit presentation, that was
Yes.
I like the idea about pinpointing the overlaps. This is something that we all face. Students get confused sometimes. They say, but they told me this, this has to be this way, and then what you're telling me, this has to be that way. So it's a very good point. For rotation, I have my concerns for different reasons. The logistics, probably examples that I'm going to give are, we can put them under logistics, like at Sabancı at least, student numbers, we find out about student numbers at the very last minute, like how many students we're going to have a prep year, then how many are going to be freshman students. So we need extra freshman teachers, instructors, for example. Last year, for example, one instructor had to start a week before the courses started. So that orientation, that going back and forth, I guess, is unmanageable because they have to work on a totally new book, totally new text, a totally different system. So for such reasons, I have my reservation.
Any more?
That makes two Sabancı people at one go, but I would like to thank Pamela and her group, of course, for this very nice presentation, which I think hit, the nail on the head. I think it's the basic, the fundamental thing that we need when considering all the problems we discussed yesterday and today regarding to the overlap or the problems of freshman English and the prep programs. The culture, the environment, everything that you decide on in the beginning when setting up these programs, they actually influence the outcome of all the things we have been talking about. So thank you very much.
Pam and I work in the same institution, and I was working when she was speaking. Okay, we all have kind of similar understandings here, and we share things more easily here. I always feel it at FOCI. We feel the same, we think the same. We sometimes have disagreements, which is quite normal. But when we go back to our institutions, that was a question in my mind. For example, Pam and I will give some kind of presentations. Will we feel that comfortable when talking, prep teachers are like this, freshman teachers are like this? How are our friends going to perceive the idea? How are they going to think about it? Once you turn your back, are they going to say, oh, what kind of presentation was that? These kind of things actually make us not share. Maybe this is kind of one of the first reasons of the barriers between these two whole unity. So we should just take it into consideration and be brave. Do it. Thanks.
Jonathan, can I respond to Zainab, something Zainab said? In terms of the rotation of teachers, you're worried about the logistics. I'm wondering if when the teachers are employed, they're actually, they go through the orientation for both at the same time. And then they're sort of under the expectation that they will be posted for each, either one. We don't know until maybe the last week of the holidays. Do you think that would be possible? And the rotation would be proportional, so there are maybe less fresh teachers, more prep teachers, and then it would be rotational according to the proportions needed.
Thank you. Last chance to make a comment or question. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Group D, that was. So we'll on to C, sorry, I've got too much to go. D, I'll hand over to D.
I think we're kind of going to talk about coffee, so it's kind of a perfect, the elephant in the room. I'm glad we didn't name our presentation what we thought we were going to, because it would have been the same as other people's. Our topic is curriculum design for prep and also post-prep and sort of bridging that gap. But we came up with a highly creative name of first unit, first unite, or you could say first unite, right? It's one of those where you put the punctuation riddles. Okay, first slide. Our aim was to think about how to bridge the curriculum gap between prep and post-prep programs by examining the problems that we see, offering suggestions, and also a final, very exciting, so hold on to your seats, solution that we came up with. Okay, so what's the current situation? We thought this was an important topic to look at first. The biggest problem is that we don't know where to start. Okay? So we thought one way to deal with this, and typically if you're dealing with curriculum design, the most important way to deal with this is to choose an instructional design model that you can then build your process around. So probably a lot of you are familiar with the ADDIE model. It's very typical. There are many, many others. But this is just one example you could use. You start with the analysis phase, you move on to sort of designing the solution, you develop the materials, you implement the materials, and then you get to the evaluation phase, which is continual. So it's a life cycle process, kind of. So you go back to the beginning every time you finish the process, and sometimes in the middle of the process as well. And we don't know what we need to do. We all kind of sit down and talk about the problems, but what can we actually do about them? So much like some of the other groups, we said doing a full needs analysis might be a positive step. Next, prep and post-prep seem to be different entities. The so-called elephant in the room, FOCI, in terms of their objectives and curricula. So really looking at how to scaffold the objectives across the programs is really important, and sort of create that continuity for the learner as well as for the instructors or teachers. And also avoiding redundancies, not recreating the wheel. Oh yeah, we already did this and we're doing it again kind of situation. The last problem is sort of a framing device here. We don't know where to stop. We often go too far and add too much into our solutions. Okay? So trying to figure out how to create communication channels between prep and post-prep. And we use the terms prep and post-prep because we're not just talking about freshman English, or like I'm in academic writing and coach. We're not talking about those specific things. We're talking about everything after prep. So that might include, dealing with sophomores, freshmen, graduate students, etc. Okay. Next, needs analysis. What are our suggestions? Involve all the stakeholders. I know another group also talked about this. And the people that really make the budgetary decisions are typically the administration. So if they're not part of the needs analysis process, and you figuring out what they think you need to have, then although you think your solution has a lot of value, you may get vetoed, okay, in the end. Tools, when we do our needs analysis, so stakeholders would be maybe students, both prep, and then people who've gone through prep and then gone on to enter their faculty. What do they see as needed? It would be prep teachers, post-prep teachers. It would be basically everyone across the university. Okay. Tools, we said we needed a variety of quantitative and qualitative tools. Quantitative might be looking at, exit exams. It might be doing wide-scale surveys. Qualitative could be perhaps doing interviews, doing observations, doing focus groups, these kind of things. Also a literature review, something that came up. What does the research say? Okay? Because we often recreate our own wheels within our institutions. Oh, well, we're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again and put a different name on it. But what does the literature say? And what research have people been doing in this topic, and how can that inspire you? Also collaborating with faculty. I mean, our end, customer, if you will, is the student, but it's also the faculty, right? So the end goal should be not only to get them out of prep and then get them out of freshman English, but how are they going to succeed and thrive within their faculty? Okay? Being able to communicate, being able to really be part of that community and to really interact with that community properly. Also figuring out, and I don't think we put this on the slide, but we did talk about what do they need to know after they graduate? Okay? Once they go into their field, what do they need to know? What do they need to be able to do? So those are two things, knowledge and ability. Okay. Maintain awareness of best practice internally and externally, domestically and internationally. Okay? So that means both within your institution, but then also within Istanbul. So inshallah, we can put together a freshman English, academic writing, post-prep group. Because I personally would love to know what people in other organizations are doing at my same level, for example, and also domestically and internationally, making a real focus on, going to conferences abroad, speaking at conferences abroad, figuring out how to be part of that community as well. Because a community of practice has concentric rings, and so the largest ring should be the whole world. I mean, what are people doing everywhere in similar programs? And address generation gaps. This is something that often comes up, sometimes within the faculty, sometimes within our departments themselves, right? So who's a digital native, or these Mark Prensky terms or whatever. Now, who's a digital native, who's a digital immigrant? You might be surprised. Some people who are supposed to be a digital native are actually a digital immigrant, for example. And also making sure that we're integrating digital literacy and digital rhetoric into our needs analysis. What do the students need to be able to do from a technology perspective? And not being overly ambitious, so really prioritize what we're doing. Progression between the programs. We thought first, let's look at the aims of programs typically. The prep aim is to build the foundation, hence the foundation year name, which I think is a really nice term. And then the post-prep aim, which sort of typically involves more specific skills. Okay, so how do we do this progression between the programs? First of all, set realistic exit standards and expectations. And a lot of times we're living sort of under a fallacy that you can actually teach someone English in a year and teach them English to a level where they can perform academically. It's not really plausible. I've met a couple students who are able to do it, I think, but I think they're the exception and not the norm. So really being honest with ourselves as to how far you can get someone when they get through the prep program and how far you can get them once they enter the post-prep program and how long that needs to continue on, right? Needs to continue on throughout their academic career and probably throughout their career in general. And continuous English support classes throughout their academic career. So again, this is what I was talking about. You know, even when they're a sophomore or a junior or a senior or moving into graduate studies, especially if they want to, after graduate studies, move to a PhD abroad, they really need to have that continuous English language support and continuous writing support typically. Rotation of colleagues, we talked about this. What are the sort of problems that we might run into with that? Choosing and creating appropriate materials based on contiguous objectives that are designed together. Okay? So sitting down together and creating sort of these scaffolded contiguous objectives that sort of move through both programs we thought was something that would be really important. And to partner with the faculty to identify true needs rather than relying on our assumptions. So we sort of stay in our little, prep and English, first year English or whatever silos and say, oh, students definitely need to know how to write an essay. We had a big conversation. Do they need to know how to write an essay? Okay, they need to know, and we're going to talk about this, the critical thinking skills, but that rhetorical style, is that really necessary once they move into their faculty? So thinking about that as well. Learning and teaching activities. Create tasks that promote real interaction among prep and post-prep students, right? So what kind of interaction is going to pull them in or draw them in or make them feel inspired to actually learn the language? Because that's what we need to be focusing on. Maintain the same principles and approaches between prep and post-prep, right? So this goes along also with the language. What language are we using? Again, if you treat students like high school students in prep, and then as though they're in a faculty class once they enter their freshman English class, they're going to have a mind shift, right? So having this sort of continuity between the two is important. Also providing a variety of topics and tasks, and addressing 21st century skills like digital literacy, digital rhetoric, etc. Integrating that, because they're expecting it. Integration of critical thinking. This was really important. We really focused on this a lot, right? How do you focus on integrating critical thinking, both questioning and evaluating, into all levels? A lot of times people think, oh, well, when they're in prep, they're only doing the language part, so we can't really integrate critical thinking into that. But the point that we talk about is that this should be something that's integrated throughout the program. Okay? Keep it simple. Make it more progressively challenging as students move on, also with macro and micro tasks. Use critical thinking to move from grammar-based approach to a more communicative, skills-based approach. Obviously, this is part of the whole creating a continuous set of objectives that move from one program to the next. In-service training for instructors to promote critical thinking as well. Supporting your staff, upskilling your staff continually. Don't just expect them to be able to do it. Tell them the rules, and then they can go by them. Okay, evaluation and assessment, and I should go a little quicker, I think. Yes, reflecting on what's been covered, being standardized and normed regularly across the departments, so having norming and standardization sessions, being focused on both summative and formative assessment in order to promote student students being integrated and sort of excited about it. Utilizing best practice, again, domestic and international. What is everyone else doing? Not just in my university, not just in my city, not just in my country, but all over the world. And integrating different types of assessment. So, especially peer assessment and self-reflection and figuring out how to assess those. Okay, contact hours. These are our recommendations as the consultants that we are for contact hours. We said 26 hours a week in prep, but not all of them need to be filled with materials. We're not just shoving material into their brains. We're providing opportunities for them to use that content as well. Post-prep, about 4 hours a week, plus additional outside hours. And post-prep, sophomore, junior, senior, and even graduate years, maybe 2 or 3 hours a week. So this is not just something that needs to finish once they finish freshman English, they go, thank God I'm done with that, right? Quality is more important than quantity, so. And our solution, I got to it finally. And we are, we'd like to petition for about 6 more months of your time and money, as the consultants that we are, to create a FOCI whole learning center. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the who, what, when, where, and how of the FOCI Learning Center, okay? Who is it? Who's going to be working there, basically? This will be a learning center, a physical learning center in a space that will include prep teachers, post-prep teachers, the TAs probably, faculty advisors, student representatives, and also full-time staff, maybe 2 people, a director and maybe someone who works for them. It's an interdepartmental learning center that is run independent of any one department. So this doesn't belong to the prep department or the post-prep department. It's sort of a shared space. Full-time hours, so it's, 9 to 5 or whatever those are. Maybe in the evenings if students do need some support in the evenings as well. On campus, so it has a central location. And also, what are they going to do, right? Is this center going to be a solution? Organizing rotations, so that might be part of their job. Giving workshops, both to the students and to the staff. And one-on-one sessions, so writing sessions, English language sessions, collaboration groups, so designing those collaboration groups across prep and post-prep. Having a research center. Who's doing research? This center needs to be publishing, okay? Digital resources, a whole digital repository of information and also resources that can support everyone who's working in the center and also utilizing the center. Everyone from a prep student to a graduate student who's writing their thesis. To a professor, because professors do need writing help too, believe it or not. But can you go back? And academic writing support and professional trainings. So that's it. And this is our final quote. Coming together is the beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success.
Okay, 5 minutes again with you.
Get to know the people.
Okay, any comments for group D?
This thing on. I just wanted to appreciate this group for looking forward to sort of dreaming solutions that aren't necessarily logistically possible in the university now, but I think that's part of what these events are great for, is sort of dreaming about what could be and then slowly working towards that. So I just wanted to appreciate this group.
Any more comments? I'll make one comment about this group. We were looking at the photos of this group and we suddenly realised that I think over 50% of the group is from Izmir, and we were thinking we tried to spread all the professional people, the private universities, the state universities, but we forgot to think of again. So we're going to spread you around much more. Okay, our last group is Group E. Do we have a presenter?
Surprise, we are two people. But you can consider us as one because we are from the same institution. My name is Didem Gümüşlüoğlu. I'm from Doğuş University.
I'm Tuba from Doğuş University, so we couldn't come up with an abbreviation like FOCI, a very nice one. So we are 2D. You can't imagine us one.
Alright. First of all, we'd like to thank the FOCI committee and our lovely facilitator, Minerva, our host, our group members, Elif Hoca from Bahçeşehir University, Ezgi Topaç, İstanbul Medeniyet University, Gülten Küçük, Koç University, Maya Morales, Bilgi University, Nazan Yağcı, Ege University, Sercan Ercan, Eskişehir Osman Gazi University, Süleyman Ünal, Turkish Air Force Academy. Thank you very much for your contributions. So our last group and our topic is learners' perceptions and experiences. Let's have a look at the scenario one more time. It says, analysis of learner evaluations shows that students are often confused when they pass from grad to freshman. Their comments show that they feel that there is a lot of unnecessary overlap. You know what, we have carried out another needs analysis, a more recent one actually, and it also shows that there is a gap between the two programs, alright? So what we did was actually to go over the points for consideration in our booklet and to find some suggestions for these points. The first slide please. Okay, no, it's not the first, yeah. Motivation. So the first point of consideration is motivation. We have come up with some suggestions and we based our suggestions on our rationale. Our rationale is learning training is key, alright, and needs to continue throughout the year for awareness raising. Because students are not aware of a lot of things when they start their university and when they become prep students. And motivation comes from interest and being heard. Interest from the side of the teacher and interest from the side of the student. And being heard is really important for the students. You know, our students are our objects of our efforts. Yeah, objects of our efforts. And we are the two sides of the same coin. We are the two sides of an apple. So they are really very important for us. And we need to make that we feel what they feel. We understand what they feel. What can be done? These are our suggestions. Throughout the year, we are talking about the prep year actually. Sample lectures from the university can be given. They can either be live or they can be videotaped for students so that they may feel themselves more into the business, more into the subject. Because as some of our friends have already mentioned, our prep school students are in a separate building most of the time and they really feel themselves separated from the whole process, from the faculty and faculty friends and professors. Orientation program. Most universities have an orientation program at the beginning of the academic year. Students take some courses or join some lectures, but then they forget this. And all through the year, they are in the same vicious circle, study, take exams, attend the lessons. And this might be boring for them and they move away from their focus. Their focus is actually to become a university student. So that both in the first week and also later throughout the year, orientation programs might be carried on. Expectations of the course. Students don't know why they are at prep school. They think that their only aim is to learn present perfect, or they think that their only aim is to be able to write opinion essays or discursive essays, whatever. But if we provide them with a course outline and make the goals known, then it's easier for our students to believe. Sharing real experience. This might be both from the faculty members and from faculty students as a help for prep students. If they exchange ideas and if they exchange problems, this makes it easier to move on. Collaboration with Turkish instructors, we have discussed that our students have some difficulty even writing emails in Turkish. They don't know how to write essays in Turkish as well. They don't have academic skills in Turkish as well. So, if we can get some help from Turkish instructors and provide our students with some necessary information so that they can transfer their skills to their second language. Extra support, many of us have already mentioned, writing centers or digital platforms, which we believe is very important, might provide some extra support in order to enhance our students' motivation.
So this is where I take up. I want to start not by learners being correct, but I want to say that I'm very happy to be the last presenter. I didn't know that it would be like that way. But I'm very happy because I had the chance to see that we are all on the same page. We are sharing this common ground, and our worries are the same, our problems are the same, more or less. It's not always is a very dangerous word anyways. So I want to say that I'm very happy to share the same emotions, worries, problems, and very importantly, the basic same solutions. This crowd, which I'm very happy to be here, gave me a very good idea that actually this isn't going to be a problem, it may not be a problem in the future. Do I really need this? I think I'm glad. Okay, so we are here in this room, we are believers, we are dreamers, I believe, because this is the force that drives us all here. We are after our dreams, so dream is a dream, and goal is a dream with a plan and a deadline. So this is our stretch, I guess, and when we put them all together on FOCI website, it's going to guide us through, and I'm sure some of us, when we go back to our institutions, we will leave this door with the seeds in our minds. This event planted the seeds in our minds, and most of us has the courage and the inspiration to carry on. So I think this is very important, and I don't want to
know what is motivation. That's how you motivate.
I might be carried out so much sometimes, so I'll carry on with this one. The next thing we talked about was learners' needs. So we have already mentioned that learners is our focus. Of course, curriculum is very important. Of course, our wishes are very important, but learners are in the center. And they are the ones we really need to touch. So here, we talked about analysis, which many of our friends here mentioned. We need to start with analysis. So we really need to find out where they are from, what's their background, and their gender, their university entrance exam grades, and many more you can name. So I think this is a starting point. No, I think. I love the group things as well. So culture shock. We mentioned about culture shock because we have national and international students. And it doesn't matter whether national or international, those students have a culture shock, so we may need to find ways to overcome this problem as well. And writing centers, student study centers, tutorials, they will be the things that they will help them. And those are the ideas, good ideas, that might help our students to survive in academic environments. And coaching is another one which I really believe in. Coaching might help them. I don't need to explain the bulk points here. I'm sure everybody knows what they really mean. And alternative classroom management strategies as well. Yes. And I want to show you another cartoon, a cartoon. We forgot to give you the copies. So, you have a question, Calvin? Yes. What assurance do I have that this education is adequate at preparing me for the 21st century? Am I getting the skills I'll need to effectively compete in a tough global economy? I want a high-paying job when I get out of here. I want opportunity. In that case, young man, I suggest you start working harder. What you get out of school depends on what you put into it. Oh, don't forget it. nice.
Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Learners' self-perceptions. This is a very fragile, sensitive issue because it's very, very personal how they perceive themselves. So we felt the need to limit it to just learning, actually. For For self-reflection purposes, learning journals can be a solution. Learning baggage, what does this mean? The students have a shaped learning habit and they have some fossilized ideas about their future studies which made them form in their past life actually. We have to undo the damage and reshape the damage by giving them learning journals, by giving them goal-setting tasks, action plans, and some progress tutorials. I think communication is the answer. If you have the right communication, mutual communication, it will solve the problem. Mutual patience. There is a certain student profile that faculty expects, and maturity actually makes it possible. And we can call it studentship. We don't have an abbreviation, but we have a word for it, studentship. There's a variety of perceptions related to learning and teaching English, and there must be some attempts to marry these expectations actually. We talked about a project that is carried in Lowell by the psychology department. Actually, I don't want to give the details, but the summary is teachers and professors learn each other's syllabuses and they try to apply the points in the syllabuses in their courses actually. This is a partnership, let's call it. And making teaching and learning contracts, this may have an effect on the students' performances as well. Learners transition between programs.
Students do not necessarily need to think that there is an unnecessary overlap. We can overcome this problem by, we have come up with two solutions. More unity between two programs, bridging the gap, which all of us already mentioned. Bridging the gap is the main thing that we need to focus on at the moment, I guess, before we carry on with the other solutions and problems. And focus group meetings to discuss what are students' expectations, both in freshman programs and prep programs. I mean, we really don't think that there's a huge difference between prep and degree because our problems are very similar and our main aim is to bridge the gap between them, so we can think that those problems can be solved in only one way. So let's bridge the gap and create students focus group meetings with freshmen and prep programs.
Classroom atmosphere is another important thing. The notion of the teacher and the student is changing. The teacher is supposed to be the sole provider of the information, the knowledge, standing before the students by the board. And this makes students expect too much from the teachers, and this makes students lazy and question their position in the classroom actually. So we can change the authority figure in the classroom. We can give some more responsibility to the students, we believe. Technologically equipped courses, lessons have importance. We can have online classroom management systems. We can engage in empower materials and activities. And there is a classroom culture. We need to notice this culture. Everybody has to collaborate within the borders of the classroom. Not only the teachers, students have to learn to take the responsibility of their own learning. And friendly atmosphere is also important. We have to create a culture around the groups because we have discussed about the crowded classes as well. There are really crowded classes which are not suitable for such suggestions, let's say, to adopt such suggestions, but we can regroup students and maybe within the groups we may try to realize our aims, we think. Identity. is also important. The student has to understand the real identity of being a student, what it means, and the teacher, as I said before, shouldn't be considered as the sole provider of the information. The teacher has to be the guide, the teacher has to be the facilitator, and students should accept themselves as learners and not students, so-called. For this aim, coaching and mentors can be a suggestion. Just finishing 2 minutes. All right. Okay. Okay, time's flying. All right. Okay, can you please read the slides? 2, I guess. 1 or I don't know. And can you please show the last slide because we have some discussion points. Yeah, these are the points that, these are the suggestions or questions, let's say, that we discussed within our group. Maybe you would like to discuss them between yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 5 minutes to discuss either these questions or the questions you've had with your partner. 5 minutes. Any last comments? Any answers to these questions or comments about this? Okay. Okay, we're about to have our group photo taken from the balcony, and I think Sheila wants us to. We're going to stand in the middle.
Can I add something first? I would like to thank you for organizing this event and inviting us. But all focus groups defined many problems and offered many suggestions and solutions. And we all have come to the same point. We have lack of communication, and we need to communicate in order to collaborate and work together. However, unfortunately and culturally, we allow criticizing, we allow complaining, we allow underlining the negative points, we allow gossiping, and we lack appreciating the others. So, if we do not change this mentality,
It starts from the administration.
yes. If we do not change this mentality, all these suggestions and solutions will be meaningless. And all these points, I think we all have this in mind in theory, but when it comes to applying this, okay, we do not do anything since I think we cannot internalize these solutions. Thank you. And we are the next host, we at University. We are looking forward to seeing you all in May in Ankara. Thank you.
Yeah, we just had to have the photo, then we're going to have a break, and we do have a last session. This isn't the end. We're going to have a last session reflecting back on what we've done over the last 2 days and also looking forward. Sorry. Sorry. So our last session is the final roundup session, which is a combination of reflecting on the last 2 days and then thinking forward to the future. First of all, I was told you at the beginning that Leah is going to give us some sort of personal reflections on the last couple of days. So I'll to Leah again. Thanks.
I'm going to call you FOCI friends from now on because William calls you FFs, which I love. Just bear that in mind for the next one. Okay, so personal. You know, from observing your groups and your presentations and everything, it seems like it's no longer an option to have no collaboration or just a little bit of collaboration and for everyone to say, oh, we're surviving. You know, that's not an option for us to move forward. And what you've come up with over the last 2 days is just the first step, which you guys are going to take back to your institution and by proactively engaging with your colleagues and by leading by example with that collaboration, hopefully that's the way that things are going to move forward. And each of you